Please put your hands together for GUIDO VERBIST.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for coming out for this session, where I'm going to talk about maybe a bit controversial for some people, that a sustainable economy is only possible in a circular economy and when not-for-profit is the focus of the in business model that you will work for. I have been working my entire life basically in organizations that run programs based on a purpose and not necessarily based on for profit. But of course there's also financials that you need to be considering, and I will elaborate on that a bit more in this session. There are two examples I will talk about that I'm familiar with. Bauer Reuse and Repair Center is a charity, an environmental charity that I have been leading till recently, based in Markville. I've managed that for 8 years, and I'm now working with Wastewood, which is a private business and focused on recycling wood. And I have some slides with each of those organizations to give you an idea of what they do. So Bauer Reuse and Repair Center is, like I said, an environmental charity. They collect goods that previously were owned by individuals, by residents from Sydney metropolitan area. And they sell them in their stores in Markville and in Parramatta. They repair them as well, and they make new goods out of items that are discarded, they can't be repaired, but reused. But they also are involved in a lot of education and community work. They have workshops, they have repair cafes where people can learn how to do repairs themselves. And they also have a tool library where you can actually borrow tools rather than having to buy them. If you just need to drill a hole in a wall, borrow it rather than buying. It's saving resources you will do. And the slide at the bottom right side is an illustration of goods we can give to people that are either refugees or victims of domestic violence, homeless people. And the whole setup cost only $1,000. And we have funds to pay for the cost for that kind of operations, and it's helping people. So it's a win for the community and a win for the environment. That's to give you an idea of what this organization does. It's an environmental charity, as I said, but it's all based on the mission, the purpose they stand for. And one specific program that I want to highlight here as well is Tiny Houses. It's a program that we initiated in this organization in 2013, when there was still not a lot of talks here in Australia about tiny houses. It came from Europe and the US. And we started building one with a builder that was interested in it, using our reclaimed building material. And the right one, the small tiny house there, was built at on our site in Markville. And based on that, we realized that there was quite a lot of interest for that program. And we started developing a course, and since then we have been running every year 2 courses. And the one on the left side is the kind of houses we now build. We built them till what is called lock-up stage. So the interior is, in the middle picture, is not something we every time do. That's more a customized building, but it's building it till safe from the elements and locked up, that people can then design the interior themselves when they buy it from us. So that's an example of an organization that is driven by a purpose, is applying a sustainable economy. It's a circular economy as well, because it's all based on reusing material. And there's another example I want to talk to you about, which is Wastewood, where I'm currently working with the team. They are specialized in recycling timber. And there's a lot of it that goes to landfill nowadays. Very good timber, hardwood timber. You see the piles of timber that they collect. We just moved the business from a small 300 square meter space to a 1,400 square meter space, because the availability is huge and the interest is growing as well. So there is again a purpose here, and an opportunity that they work on. And you see what kind of products they make out of this reclaimed timber. The kitchen bench there is an example of that. Where they are good at as well and prioritize is helping people to learn how to do it themselves. All the skills you need, all the tools even that you need. And one of the main things that people don't like is cleaning the timber, because that's the big difference with buying new one from a Bunnings store or anywhere else. It's all pre-cut and ready to assemble. This timber is usually not in an ideal situation. You need to clean it, you denail it, get it through a machine to plane it, to flatten it out. And those are the skills that we can help with and that people can come and learn at our space. So those are two examples of what I call sustainable economies. And I want to elaborate a little bit more on the ingredients of what a sustainable economy is about. And there are three main components: the environment, the social aspect, and the economy itself. It's also sometimes called the planet, the people, or the profit. And it's the balance between all of those that makes a difference between being a real sustainable economy or not. And in the environmental aspect, I've used here the example of the Bauer. Are the primary things they focus on is the resources that they recover, that they avoid going to landfill, and then collect them and make them available again for the community. On the social aspect, it's all about looking after your people, which is in a sustainable economy quite important, because the people make the difference there in terms of being successful and getting good results. But it's not just your staff, it's also your customers, it's your shareholders, in this case not the financial shareholders, but members, for example, or the board, and embedding your organization in the community, having a participatory management style. All of that makes a big difference. And then there is the economy. There's no denial that financials are important, even if you're running it based on a sustainable economy model, and that your purpose is more important than your profit. It's still necessary to look after your financial systems. And there are, for the Bauer, many ways they do that. They have two shop fronts, like I said, also online sales. They work with programs for grants and auctions. So it's a mixture of all of those. And then there's the overlap between environmental and economy, where they allow people to bring in their own items they have refurbished and sell them in the store. Upcycling and repair is what we do for people. You have overlaps between environment and socials, where people can be trained in repairing their own items, where we have workshops, educational programs, repair cafes. And then there is the overlap between the socials and the economics, where we actually provide goods at affordable prices so that it is accessible for people that wouldn't be able to afford it otherwise. And we train them also in the skills so that they can learn jobs and generate an income out of it. So that's a concept, an example of a sustainable economy model based on the Bauer's business model. Now, I also want to say a few words about circular economy, because that's the other ingredient. If you want to be successful with sustainable economy, you have to have a circular economy and you have to have a not-for-profit business model. The circular economy, and you see here the difference with a linear economy, is that there is basically no waste. You reuse everything. You find a way to make it reusable or repairable. It, of course, starts with the design of the product. You have to design it in a way that is repairable. And that's where it sometimes, or in many cases, goes wrong now. Especially with electronics, you see a lot of items that are designed so that you can't actually open it or can't repair it yourself. They either don't have screws or special screws where you can't use the normal screwdriver for. It's glued together. There's software in it that is only accessible by it's the intellectual property, basically, that is owned by the builder of the product, and they are the only one that have access to the data, which makes it impossible for the normal people and small services providers to repair it. So that kind of problems leads always to a linear economy or a recycling economy, and not a circular economy. So it's not just us as an individual or as a business that does repair that play a role, but it's also the manufacturer of the products that needs to look at the design, the repairability. And there's currently actually a program with the government in place to investigate what it would take to make items more repairable. It's the right to repair investigation. And those are the kind of recommendations we have made, that the durability and the repairability should be much higher on the agenda, and only then you can talk about a circular economy. The linear economy is what we are all used to. You buy it and throw it away after 2 years, 3 years, when your phone is out of fashion, or when it's broken and it's cheaper to buy a new one, you will then throw it away. That's linear economy. Recycle economy is where some parts of it can be reused, but usually it's downcycling, like plastic that is collected to make something else out of, and after a while that has to be thrown away as well. So you still end up with a situation where you create waste, even though that it is recycling. And like I said, the only real solution is that you make products where the components can be reused and repaired and reintegrated time and time again. The next slide is about, well, I think the key issue is here to consider time and time again is purpose or profit, and what comes first, purpose before profit or profit before purpose. And the two examples I used, the charity, which is the Bauer, and the social enterprise, which was a private company, the Wastewood, are two organizations that have put purpose before profit. And that's the key choice that anybody should make individually, as a business leader, as a manager of an organization, where that is your main objective, your purpose or your profit. And it makes a substantial difference in terms of how you then will roll out your programs and whether you will be able to meet the sustainable economy objectives. The next slide is the balancing act that everybody needs to consider. This is the most difficult question that everybody will have to ask him or herself. What comes first, profit or purpose? And the main question then is, what is your purpose? And purpose is based on a interest in improving the welfare, the environment you live in. It has to have an element of improving the situation for your people, for your environment, for animals. If that is your purpose, then the question is not what you're going to do, it's why you do it. The what can be anything, as long as it is leading to an improvement of a situation or a welfare problem that you are concerned about and that you want to address. So the why is the main question that everybody should ask him or herself. And once you have a clear answer for that one, the rest is actually relatively simple, but still important to be consistent and following through on some procedures. And the three main dimensions that everybody should then systematically keep front and center is, first of all, you have to inform yourself and be knowledgeable about the issue that you're concerned about. Keep yourself updated on what is happening, and be then able to make the right decision time and time again in function of this welfare, social, environmental, or ethical problem that you are concerned about. That is the driver for your motivation, that you will continue to be interested and motivated to do something about it, and you develop your action plan or your business model, whatever it is that you will then do, where it is building boxes for birds, or like what Vito Green is doing, the walls to the vertical gardens they were building. Whatever it is driven by an objective, a purpose. And that should continue to be the central point in your business model. And this is an outline of how such a business model works. So you have your purpose. It's a shared purpose amongst all your people, all your staff. They are recruited with the objective as the main criteria, whether they believe, support, and are excited about it or not. Of course, the technical skills are important, but technical skills can be trained, can be improved on, need to be refreshed. It's your belief in the purpose that is the main thing to assess your people against. And it's also the identification as an individual with that objective as an organization that is important. And it's the contribution you can do as an individual to that program. Because in an organization where it is driven by a purpose, you will want to know what the skills are that each of your staff member have that can contribute to that, what their interests are, where is a match between their interests, their skills, and what your organization wants to do. And the closer you come to that, the more encouragement, the more enthusiasm, the more motivation your staff will have to be part of that program. So that's the shared purpose, the main thing. And then your outcomes follow almost logically from that the individual will feel more committed to engage, to be part of the programs, will be proactive in helping finding solutions or recommending solutions, and their behavior will be more positive, more encouraging. And as a collective, you will also have a more united team, and your profit will follow suit as well. I'll come to that a bit later also. So then there is the accelerators. What makes the difference to be successful there? It's that the people will trust your organization, both internal and external. There will be a trust that they believe, support what you do. The motivation of both, again, your customers and your staff will be of a higher level. They will choose you above somebody else because they trust and believe in what you stand for. Your values will be more prominent and attractive to your clients and your staff. And of course, on a personal level, it's a lot more fun to work in an organization where you actually do something that you personally believe in. And then you have all your traditional drivers. They are not different from any other profit model or organization. You still have to do your homework in terms of developing a strategy. Your leadership style is still important, that you have an inclusive model. You need to have your systems and procedures in place to deliver good quality products, and your communication, both internal and external, is also still essential. But it's all based on your purpose. It's not based on making more money, basically. And so that's in short how such a business model works. And this slide from Harvard Business School demonstrates that when you have prioritized the purpose for above profit, that actually your income is a lot more upstream and better than if you wouldn't. And you see here the difference. This is over a period of 3 years. For prioritizers are those that had indeed integrated a purpose and made that the main cause of what they do and where decisions were based on. The developers are those that were still kind of considering it, but not yet implemented it. And the laggards are those that actually didn't have a purpose. And you see clearly a difference in terms of income stream and profit that they made, despite that purpose is the main driver for their organization. So in short, the 10 tips for a sustainable economy. First of all, you have to identify your means and ends. And what is the means and what is the ends? And in a traditional one, it will be your end is profit. Here, it is a purpose. And the means to get there is that you need income, profit to cover your costs to be able to deliver. But make sure that your purpose is the end goal and not your profit. And that the means is the income streams to make that happening. Then the third step, which is actually the most important in a way, is identifying your own purpose and the problem you want to address and how you're going to do that. And that is a quite intense process that each of us as an individual should go through. but also as an organization. And that's point 3 and 4. So the organization has to make it clear, and then the people that join this organization have to commit to that, has to be convinced that that is the right thing, that they want to support that and engage in it. And then the collaboration, point 5, to solve those problems. That's where you can have actually the quality of your team becomes then important, and the individuals in your team. Point 6 is the inclusivity, and that's both in internal and external people, that you consult with everybody, that you not just listen to your customers, but also to your staff, to everybody that plays a role in your organization. And the welfare, it's not just listening, but you make sure that people are happy with what happens, that the customer enjoys the product, the output, the impact it has, that the staff is happy and feel appreciated, can contribute, etc. Point 8 might sound logic, but it's not as easy as we would like it. Don't be greedy. Don't put money before anything else. If you are just there because you want to have more money, forget all of this. Don't listen to me anymore, because then it makes no sense. You will not be able to implement a sustainable model. Of course, you need to have bread on the table. Of course, you need an income. But if that is the only driver, you actually can't really implement a sustainable economy. And then choose to fully apply it, as I'm saying. And nowadays, this is called new economics. But actually, it is the same old economics, except that there has been a long period of capitalism that has influenced our thinking, our behavior, shareholders, where money talks and decides what you do and don't do. That's why we call it now new economics, to go back to the old, where it is all based on purpose and not on profit exclusively. And then the last point is the logic one that I already demonstrated with the Harvest Business report, that once you implement it all, the rest will follow. Sustainability will follow, equitable systems will follow, and the prosperity will follow. And that's basically the presentation I want to give you an idea of what it takes if you want to have a real sustainable economy. The combination between purpose, profit, and your passion.
Absolutely fantastic. Do you enjoy that? I'm sure there's a few questions for you, Guido.
No worries.
Who's my first person who has a question for Guido? While that person's waiting to put their hand up, tell us about your tiny houses. You've also were the first person to put a tiny house in Australia.
True.
Tell us about that. And you teach workshops still?
Yes. When we were introduced, like I mentioned in 2013, with the idea of building a tiny house, I realized very early on that this was actually a perfect example of what sustainable economy is about. You can first of all demonstrate it by using reclaimed building material to build one, and explain how and train people in how to do it on a technical side. But it's also a perfect example of rethinking how you live your life, living close to nature. A tiny house is tiny, so you have limited space. You have to think through what you want to keep, what you need, what is essential in your life, but also how you design it. What do you want? A big toilet, bathroom, a lot of workspace, etc. That's your choice. You can design it the way you want, and you build it with all the ingredients for the utilities that are sustainable. Solar on your roof, water collection that you can have. So the whole idea around tiny houses is in many ways a perfect example of a sustainable economy, both in lifestyle and in production of it. And that's why the Bauer has been promoting it, and they still do it. Every year they build 2 tiny houses and auction them off, and they're available for further to design the interior then, because we don't do the interior.
In terms of products, obviously you've come from a recycled reclamation yard. What place do recycled items place in renovation? Is there a place for it?
Is
there a place for recycled items in renovation?
Well, Wastewood is an example. They actually just moved to Leichhardt, 1,400 square meters. That's for timber, where you can find all sorts of timber, small, big, hardwood, different qualities. If you actually want know more about that, the Bauer has on their website a database with close to 1,000 organizations that are active in the reuse and the repair sector. So you go to their website and click on this database, and you will see for whatever you have in your household and you don't need it anymore, there are ways to do the right thing, to give it away or to sell it or to pass it on to companies that do the repair or the reuse of it. It exists, but it's not something that comes easy. I mean, it's an additional step. The easiest step that many people go is just put it outside and call the council to collect it, and then it goes to landfill. But one step more, and you can do the right thing.
One question, thanks. Do you have an apprentice program that goes through the recycling? So what you're trying to achieve with your companies, putting apprentices through the woodworking skill sets?
We don't have it in place yet. But we are looking into it actually with TAFE, for example, because there are courses where it would fit with what we have and what they have, that there could be any kind of an induction course. Indeed, we think that would be a good step forward, but it's work in progress.
So working with the TAFEs and things like that?
Yeah.
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 Right. Thank you. Oh, just to say, encouraging people to get more into this from a recycling, so get the apprentices, the woodworking, the carpenters, etc., to get the value of what you're trying to achieve.
I 100% agree, and it's in light of what even the government is promoting and the stimulus, the budgets that are made available. They want to invest in recycling. They want to train more people. TAFE has been given more money, and the communities in general start realizing that reuse and repair is a good thing to do, but a lot of the skills, a lot of the knowledge has been lost. So training programs for apprentices is the perfect way to bring it back, and we are investigating that, how we can do it.
Thank you.
Bruce?
In the eastern suburbs, in the eastern suburbs, 3 times a year there's a council pickup, and there's an enormous amount of good quality stuff sitting on footpaths. Do you get access to any of that, or is there any way you can?
Yeah, well, the Bauer has, if it's Cumberland or Parramatta Council you talk about, arrangements. They are part of the service that the Bauer provides, collecting goods from those residents. They pay us a fee, basically, to do that work. And in return, we either go out with our truck or they can bring it. Or, like I mentioned, the database where they can find an alternative place to take it to. So yeah, we work with the councils, and of course there can be a lot more done by councils. I'm not going to dispute that there is room for improvement, both from the council side, but also from the members of the community themselves. And we see it in many cases that it's the convenience that is not always there for a person to do the right thing. If they have to take it to another location, driving, whatever the cost that might come with it, they try to avoid that. And then the easier way is just putting it outside on the curbside for the collection by the council. So there are 2 elements to this story of doing the right thing. The services have to be there, like all those organizations, but also the individual person has to make the right decision.
But you do have a truck that picks up if people wanted to.
You
do have a truck that could pick up from houses if people wanted to.
Yeah.
Are the councils in the eastern suburbs aware of that?
Yeah. All those councils actually promote that on their website.
I haven't seen it.
They can book us via an online booking system. Yeah. That's for the Bauer. Wastewood does it for timber. They go out when you contact them. They will come and pick up all the timber that can be reused.
Thank you.
It's my turn. It was Wastewood I wanted to ask you about. You collect it, you clean it, you denail it, you sell it. Does it make a profit? Because before you can have a purpose, you've got to have a profit.
Yeah, it does make a profit.
Does it make a profit? Because the idea of recycling timber excites me.
Yeah, it does make a profit, and then the profit comes in the first place of all the machines we have to then operate by the customer or with our assistance, the training, because an individual hasn't access to those, a planer, for example, to do the right thing with the timber. So that's what we can offer, and that's where the difference comes. I'm not going to deny that there is more work to get that timber ready for use than going to Bunnings and buy it new. But all up, it is actually cheaper to still use then the reclaimed material, even though that initially it's a little bit of work to denail it and to clean it. But in the long term, you actually make a profit individually and also as a business model.
As a business,
you actually make
that's what I was wondering. It does make a profit as business. Great, thank you.
I was just curious how long it takes to build one of the tiny homes and how much they cost.
A lot depends on what you want and how you want it to look like. But the ones that, this one here on the left side of this slide is built as part of a course with 15 students for 6 days. Intense work. So that gives you, and 8 hours per day, gives you an idea of the labor time that it takes you. If you would have to pay for that labor time, you look at around $40,000 just to build it till what we call lock-up stage. Then there's nothing in the interior. If you want to have an interior like you see in the middle picture here, you have to add another 40,000. And you talk 80,000 then. Roughly is that the price, but it depends all on what exactly you want, how you want it to look like, which is the great benefit, of course, of building it yourself.
The tiny house in the car park is worth 60,000 for those of you who've been outside to see that. So I guess there's variances, right?
Yeah. That one doesn't have a loft. Those that we built have a loft. So that it's all difference in the details that makes a difference in the cost as well.
Desiree does art on timber, and is there a potential alliance there for you to obtain your art that you do on your timber with?
If we have what?
Acrylic paint.
I'm not an expert in that regard, so I won't be able to. Yeah, I know there is a lot of paint available at the bar, but also reverse garbage, if you know them. They are actually even better equipped for that kind of artistic programs. But I'm not an expert in what paint is good for what purpose.
Desiree and John are involved in a few things, including artist therapy. So it'd be great for you to connect to potentially use their timber. But the other thing is affordable, safe housing is an area of interest as well. So perhaps we can connect you afterwards. Is this something that would be considered affordable, safe housing?
Yeah, that absolutely is. Yeah. We actually talked to some of those organizations as well about that.
Fantastic. Have we got a final question? Yes.
Sorry, I think that we arrive a little bit late, but I don't know if you talk about the suburbs where we can put tiny houses, like how the councils are like tiny house friendly.
Well, yeah, 80,000 or 40,000 for just the lock-up stage. That's, of course, if you would outsource it, that you don't do it yourself. If you do it yourself, it's a lot cheaper. But where you take it to is actually a good point and a good question where you can legally place it, basically. And that's why we built them on a trailer, and the one that is outside here is similar, built on a trailer. That basically avoids you to have to go through a process of DA approval and council approvals. The only condition is that you have a block of land somewhere where the owner of the land allows you to park your trailer in that case. Is it is built on a trailer? If you don't have it on a trailer, just a foundation, then you have no alternative than to go through the process of a DA approval, which is currently still very difficult to obtain in Australia. There was only a few councils, Gosford is one, and Fremantle in the west are examples of councils that have actually allowed for it and support that. But the vast majority of councils are still quite reluctant to give permits for those kind of buildings or tiny houses. So that's why we always built them on a trailer to avoid all those problems.
And that you can go off grid, I imagine, with the trailer, right?
Exactly.
Wonderful. Please put your hands together for Guido. He did just so awesomely.
No worries.